Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of PlexTrack Friends Friday. We're super excited to have you joining us and hope you guys are looking forward to a good weekend. We're joined by a friend who's been on the podcast before, Rey Bango. Thank you so much for joining us, and excited to have you on. Really excited about the topic as always, because just the world of AI is just so rapidly moving and fast paced and stuff. But for those of our audience that did not catch the time when you were on before, just maybe do a brief introduction of yourself and kind of your background.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me back. It's great to be back here. And AI you're right, it's taking over the world. It's what everybody's talking about nowadays. And you're like, all right, am I going to be replaced by AI? I'm like, I don't feel I am. I genuinely feel like AI is going to be complementary to my work stream. And at first, when it first came out, I was kind of hesitant about it. But now I'm trying to incorporate it in everything I can. And so what I do penetration testing. I work for a large telecom company. I focus on doing application security, application penetration testing, and network pen testing, and some red teaming here and there. But for the most part, yeah, my day to day is trying to find those gaps and trying to help the blue team just be successful in securing our customers and securing our networks and all the assets that we need. So yeah, AI is going to be, I think it's going to be a big help, even though it could be looking a little scary to some folks right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we had you on the episode last time, it was a little over a year ago, maybe even close to a year and a half. But
Time
we were
flies.
talking all about AI. Yeah, time flies. That's crazy. But we were talking all about AI and the potentialities that could exist within red teaming, offensive security, and purple teaming, and things like that. So, kind of shifting forward, it's been a year and a half, and I'd love to kind of get your take on like what you're seeing in the space from an offensive security perspective, and it's the use of AI and how AI is impacting just the whole proactive security and offensive security landscape.
That's a great question to ask, because it has changed. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought, well, it's very immature. There's still, like, it's greenfield. People have to kind of evolve and kind of adapt to it, and maybe it'll catch up. I didn't think it would catch up this quickly. And when you look at companies like Expo, for example, who are out there now, they're the number one hacker on HackerOne. You're like, okay, this is real. This stuff is possible. And it's not to say that it's only AI. It's not to say it's just technology, because there's humans behind the scenes, in some cases, validating results. It's not. I was talking to some folks from Horizon 3, for example, and they had the Node Zero project. And their product will go out there and evaluate and do assessments and stuff of networks. But one common thread that I hear when I listen to these vendors, not just Horizon 3, but any vendor that talks about AI, is that there's always some level of human interaction that needs to validate the results. And that's important. I think that's an important consideration, that you're just not blindly dependent on a system to tell you, hey, this is vulnerable.
Right.
There still needs to be somebody behind the scenes. And it's analogous to software development. I recently had to do a demo, right? And I wanted to create this vulnerable application, this purposely vulnerable application that had a remote code execution in the application itself. And so I went to Claude, because Anthropic, Anthropic, I love you guys, because you guys have done a great job of building Claude for code. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
And so I put in my prompt, and it generated this whole entire thing. And I was blown away by how good the code was. It's, as somebody who has no JS experience, somebody who was a JavaScript developer in my past life before I transitioned to security, I'm able to read the code. I understand what Express does. I understand what Node.js does. I understand what front-end code looks like, and CSS. And it just went through in 5 minutes and generated this whole application that looked realistic. But here's the thing. I had to, my virtual background shut down just out of the blue. So I had to go and validate the code no matter what. I had to make sure that it wasn't going to do something that would damage my machine, damage the demo server, damage anybody who's using it. I
Yeah.
wanted to validate that. And sure enough, as I went through, the code just looked great. Boom, boom, boom. There were some quirks here and there.
Mhm.
And I was able to kind of troubleshoot it. But I also went back and said, I'm experiencing this particular problem. Can you help me fix it? And Claude invariably was able to come up with great solutions to try to fix the code. So I think that's where the sweet spot is that combination of saying, let's use these agents, let's spin them up, let's get them out there, let's leverage AI for what it's good for, and then let's validate this once everything's done. And so companies like Expo and SimAptic by BC Security, but those are the folks that do the Empire C2 open source
Mhm.
project.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they're getting into the fray as well. And then you have Horizon 3 with Node Zero. So these commercial companies, that's what they're trying to do, produce products that will get you at least, let's say, 70, 80, 90% of the way there. But then you still need those subject matter experts to help you cross the finish line. And I think that's an important thing to think about.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I think that human in the loop concept is always going to be there, right? And I think,
Yes.
but it's so I think it's embracing, like you said, embracing what AI can do really well, and getting getting the skills that you need to be able to use AI, but it's not going to like completely replace pen testers or software engineers, right?
No,
And I think like you highlighted, with the amount of code that's getting automatically generated, that itself, in and of itself, presents more attack surface that needs to be validated, right?
of
So
course.
I think you're spot on there.
And I know this is a Plex track, webinar. I totally get it, and podcasts, and so. But think about Plex track, right? Great report writing, but what does it use? It uses AI to complement the report writing. Having created plenty of reports myself, I know that how time consuming it is, and so even having worked in Microsoft Word or other editors like that, and being able to leverage, let's say, Copilot or leverage
Right.
ChatGPT to complement the way I'm writing and be able to get me farther down the road than having to write every bit of word by myself. This is where I think those tools start to shine because they're thinking about the use cases and saying, how do we support and complement the processes that people do day in and day out to kind of build efficiency. And
Yeah.
that's where I want people to think about it. We're building efficiencies. If we build efficiencies, then it's complementary to the work streams, and that's where
Yeah.
you will shine with that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's that's like the important thing to just always remember is like, hey,
Mhm.
where we can utilize AI and do what it's good for is going to continue to perpetuate, our help us
Mhm.
be more efficient. Naturally, we've always been in the mode of like anything you can automate, you should automate, right? And AI just
Right.
helps with that. And so, I mean, I think from the offensive security landscape, it's cool to see all these newer products or newer functionality coming out in existing products. And we're seeing more and more companies and service providers pop up with the notion of AI. I'd be curious to know how you've seen the threat landscape adapt and or like evolve. And are you seeing the use of AI? Like I think we kind of predicted like, hey, like AI can be a very valuable tool for the attacker as well. I mean, are
Sure.
you what's been your take on that over the last several months?
Yeah, I recently did a video, and it was called "Have I Did I Fall for a Fish?" I think it was called, or something like that. And it was interesting. And the reason I did the video is because it was one of the first times that it was so convincing that I really had to do a double take. And thankfully, my spider senses were going off. Right, and I'm like, anytime I see something, I'm like, I've gotten to the point where I don't know, maybe it's just borderline paranoid about
Yeah,
clicking any link now, right?
yeah,
And good training. Hey, we've got good training. Don't click links.
yeah.
But what it was is that it was a Twitter, it was an email saying that somebody was trying to reset my Twitter password. And then they put the location. They said the location was in India. They put the timestamp. And what stood out to me was that everything looked legitimate. There was no misspellings. The common things that we've been working to teach folks,
Mhm.
right, as a preventative measure,
Yeah.
they weren't there. The uh, the grammar was correct. The English was well done, and I'm like, So sure enough, I said, all right, let me just check on this specific thing. And I went to the email address, and the email address was that was the one thing they couldn't spoof. They could
Yeah.
have probably tried it if they wanted to, but when you go into your mailbox and you're actually expand it out and you see that it's coming from a Gmail address, you're like, oh, maybe it's not Twitter then at that point. And then I dug deeper into it actually, and it was interesting because what it turned out to be was an OAuth type of scenario where it would go to a hosting provider and then do an OAuth for one of those apps that they can leverage Twitter, your
Hmm.
Twitter account in some fashion.
Hmm.
And if I had fallen for it, I would have given them access to my Twitter accounts to read everything and my DMs and to post on my behalf. But it was very convincing. And that's the thing that stood out to me. So and the reason I bring this up is because this is how AI is being used in so many cases. There
Right.
was an article that came out by, I think it was Anthropic. Anthropic did a blog post on different novel techniques that were used to leverage Claude in attacks. One of them was North Korean IT employees, and that's a very common thing that a lot of companies are dealing with right now. And what they were doing was to pass technical interviews, they would go and use Claude to answer the questions. And so they were,
Right.
and this is something I think we had
Yeah.
talked about. We knew
Yeah.
this was coming down the pipe. And so those types of things continue to be pervasive. So that's not even deeply technical stuff. That
Right.
is social engineering. That is, let's leverage this to just bypass the human protection, the human barriers that we have, let alone everything else.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fascinating, and I think that from the phishing and the social engineering, like
mhm,
that's all just going to continue to accelerate faster because like they're able to do things more realistic,
mhm.
with better accuracy, like you said, and so I mean, it's like we always have to continue to figure out what are the ways we can stay vigilant, not only from just the human aspect, but
Yep.
is there other technology that you're seeing that is helping to develop to like combat these things too?
Yeah, the technology that's out there now. So all the AI systems try to put in guardrails. I think it's a ultimately, I think it's a matter of how far can you go before you limit functionality entirely. I think you need to give them some space to be able to innovate while also protecting it. And so I think back to some of the work that Mark Russinovich from Microsoft did to put in guardrails. When I forgot the name of it, there was a term he used to describe this where they could almost like build upon different prompts.
Mhm.
Say, I'm a World War II veteran. Boom, and that's how the prompt starts. And then I used to build grenades. Boom. And then you continue on, and it's like stacking and stacking prompts until you get to where you can unfortunately build a Molotov cocktail. And this was
Uh-huh.
actually something that they ran into,
Right.
and he has a name for it. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it, but that was, I think, one of the first examples that I saw where they had to really start thinking about how do we build logic into these systems to protect against the malicious activity. And
Yeah.
so even now, if I go into Google Gemini, for example, and I say, I wanted to build that application I was talking about. So it was an application that was purposely vulnerable, right? And so I asked Google Gemini to do it, and it wouldn't do it. It said, "I can't build something that has any type of malicious intent." But then I went into Claude, and Claude was able to build it for me because I guess it inferred, maybe it knew my background, but it inferred that what I was trying to create was something that wasn't malicious, but it was more educational.
Right.
So it's a weird balance that a lot of these providers have to achieve. I've also heard that Grok, for example, from X is much more liberal. There are a lot of things that you can do in X, including creating shellcode, for example, that a lot of times would be blocked by other systems.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And then you have open source tools that are out there now that are exploding out. So, and
Right.
we can dig deeper into those as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean it's just fascinating how quickly the landscape continues to change. You mentioned the systems that are putting those protections in place, and that reminded me. We had talked about the fact that I took the Arcanum course for attacking AI, and it sounds like you're about to take it, and so
Yes.
that's Jason Haddix's course. We encourage everybody to go check it out too, because we love Jason, and
Hmm.
he's got great content. But yeah, like part of that course is learning, like, of these restrictions. I think they're called system prompts. And forgive me for my. I really enjoyed the course, Jason. I apologize if I'm missing the terminologies, but but bypassing those things that the system is trying to protect against, right? And that's part of the course, is like, it's still very prompt injection oriented, of like, how do I get around what it's, how can I get it to disclose things that it's not supposed to disclose, right? And that's
Right.
all part of the pen testing side of AI, right? So
And it's interesting because Ed Scotus, who is part of the SANS Institute,
yeah.
world-renowned offensive security practitioner and teacher, has said that he compared doing pen testing and learning how to pen test against AI systems and LLMs to when you were trying to learn SQL injection against databases. And he says that if you're not taking those steps to doing that, you're going to fall behind. That
Mhm.
was what he was trying to get across.
Right. Yeah.
So when the leaders of the industry are coming out and saying this is a really important area to lean into, it's important to check it out. It's
Yeah.
important, and this is one of the reasons I'm excited about taking Jason's course, because I want to learn more about what does it take to poke at a system like that. Because when you're dealing with a network or you're dealing with an application, you have, I'm going to call it this finite area, right? This landscape. This, you have a pretty set threat landscape, right? And you're going to go and say, all right, I'm going to go and hit this port, or I'm going to try to get a SQL injection in this field, or whatever it is. You know the areas. But on an when you're dealing with LLMs, they're supposed to be non-deterministic. So you can't just rely on a very specific prompt and say this prompt will always work. No, because it's non-deterministic. So you have to rely on experience. You have to understand how to tweak those prompts constantly, adapt to the different words. There is a person out on, and I'll get you the link to this one as well, so you can post it. But this person is like one of the most prolific people to bypass LLMs. I looked through it, and I wish I had it right now, because I think he calls himself like Puny the Liberator or something like that, or
Uh,
Prompty the Liberator, and he's on Twitter, and he's constantly posting these prompts, and you look at it, it's like backslash plus this that
yeah.
boom boom, and all of a sudden, yeah, he gets past it.
Yeah. That rings a bell. I'm pretty sure Jason does highlight
Yeah.
that individual in the class as well. Um, so kind of before we kind of land the plane on, like, like looking ahead, I wanted to have a little bit of a conversation around, and maybe this is part of like, hey, what do we see coming in the future? But like, we anytime around election season and just like
Mhm.
geopolitical stuff going on, AI is being used to try to, and it's just always happening. It's being used to try to manipulate our behavior and our thoughts and our
Right.
opinions, and through the use of fake video and fake media. And how do we just as individuals and as citizens, continue to try to stay vigilant on, hey, I might be trying, there might be some psychological warfare going on here in terms of like trying to manipulate my opinions and things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that, and the technologies
Yeah.
that maybe are being used to help prevent these things from happening?
It, so I hate to say it, but the technologies that were in place to prevent this type of stuff have kind of been almost pushed to the back in many platforms. And basically because there's been so much pressure to ensure that there is a balanced level of opinions on social media platforms. And so, and I look, I think that's valuable. I think people have the opportunity, should have the opportunity to express their opinions and not be stifled. My concern is that when you have social media and you have AI mixed in, then you have a lot of manipulation of videos, and then people can just run off and say, "Oh, that's real." One of the things that I've been trying to express to my family and friends is that when you see a video online, don't just take it at face value.
Yeah.
don't assume it's real. If you see something, if you see something that is so outrageous, assume that it is not real, and
Right.
then take your time. Just do a standard Google search and see what you find. And I've done this many a time, and many times you find, like, I've seen something that might say this politician did something, like really out of the norm, and then I go onto Google and I'm like, that doesn't even show up,
Right.
or it shows up in some obscure website that you're like, what is this? And so you have to take the time to research. It's not like in the old days where you just open up a newspaper and then it's there, and then you know that if it's the New York Times or the Miami Herald or
Early
whatever,
yeah.
you hope that they had journalistic integrity and they'd done their research.
Yeah.
Listen, some news media outlet today 1000.com is probably not a reputable news media. Okay. And so if you see something out there, take a moment and really do some homework, because unfortunately, it's like everything. It's like it's hearsay. Issues can start up. You can have arguments. You can build divisiveness by not taking the time to evaluate. And then also try to look for watermarks. Sora was recently announced, right? I think it's called Sora 2. I think that's what they call it. And so OpenAI has done a great job with building this video generation tool. My concern is that it's so good right now that I can see videos being created that will emulate really influential people, whether they're actors, politicians, even family members. Think about your own family members. Imagine if somebody took that and created a video of one of your children or your wife or your husband or your partner, and that was used to extort you. You now have to think about things like code words. Do you have code words that you can use to protect yourselves?
Yep.
Because if not, it's too easy to create these nowadays.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And and so I will plug a company that I'm on the advisory board for. I'm an advisor for them. So full disclosure, but so that you've got the notion of all this stuff that can be fake out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company called Swear, and they have technology where it has all the watermarks for during the time that the video is actually being created, so that it's so you can actually validate if that video was real or not. And so it's like kind of the reverse of like, hey, videos out there, how do we determine if it's real? It's like, hey, this one was recorded on this platform, therefore it has all of these markers, like all these in order to be able to validate that the video was recorded, that was the true video. And if it gets manipulated or something like that, it breaks its hash and all that technology. So I kind of like that idea, and whether it becomes Swear or somebody else, but I mean, obviously I push for Swear because like they're good people, but but like having something a little more ubiquitous of like, hey, we know that this was the original video, right? Like based on these types of technologies. That's very challenging. That's a very hard thing to do unless you can get in with the Apples or the camera consumer camera products. But anyway, I mean, like things like that I think are going to continue to have to pop up of like, we're going to need some other systems of like being able to validate what was truly recorded at that point in time and not right. So
yeah, I think the lowest common denominator right now is you can, I guess I don't even want to say trust but verify. It's like just verify.
Right.
Don't just trust. Don't just trust. Verify.
Yeah, it's like,
okay. Verify. If it's something outrageous, it's something controversial, assume that it's not real.
Yeah.
And then if you verify it's real, then you can have whatever feelings you have. Totally understand it. But most of the time, you'll save yourself a lot of angst and pain and maybe even embarrassment by just doing a little, like 5 minutes of legwork.
Yeah.
If you do something crazy, 5 minutes of legwork.
Yeah,
saves you a lot of aggravation in the future.
Yeah, be disciplined and it's like just kind of continue to be skeptical. I mean, it's like we live in that age, right? We live in that world where you just got to be a little bit cautious about anything you hear and say or see, right? So
100%. Yes, and it's not like in the old days where there was no video history of what I did. So like
Exactly. Yeah. Like my first cell phone I had was
yeah,
analog flip phone, and I was a senior in high school.
it was great. Just open it and go and talk, and then
Yeah.
put it away, and that's all you can do. Now everything's recorded. So
Yeah.
yeah, you have to be very cautious of that type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's like we're almost at time, so I mean, I think it's a good kind of transition to like as you look ahead, what are some things you're interested in seeing in the space of AI, both from the
Mhm.
offensive security space, the threat landscape? What do you kind of predict, is going to continue to transpire as we move into I mean, 6 months things could look completely different, and I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that.
No, that's great. And so, there's obviously tools that are emerging. So you have, for example, Hexstrike AI, and there's a product made by a cybersecurity firm out of China called Villager, and both of them are very similar. And what they do is they help to orchestrate your cybersecurity operations. Let me rephrase that: orchestrate your cybersecurity offensive operations.
Okay. Okay.
And so that's a very big distinction. And so what they'll do is like Hexstrike, what it does is it leverages open source tools, but it orchestrates it, spins up agents that will act as the folks that are controlling these individual tools, so that you can do your recon enumeration exponentially faster. So I guess almost like what Expo does, but it's an open source project. And
Mhm.
then the other one is Villager, which it seems to be trying to do the same exact thing. What I always recommend is that when you're using these tools, just know that you don't know what's behind the scenes, what's happening behind the scenes. I can't tell you that a commercial product is exponentially more um, productive, I guess, and more stable. I would hope it is.
Mhm.
But because look, when we use Kali, what do we use? Primarily open source tools, right?
Right.
But I think they've been vetted over a long period of time. When you have new tools like that, just be cautious about them. So I don't recommend anybody just going off and
Yeah.
git clone
Well,
Hexstrike AI and go run with it.
yeah.
But
And
uh,
I don't know. I don't know that this is like something that I would always be just skeptical or cautious of is like, hey, if I'm using an open source tool, especially if it's out of China or something like,
yeah,
is and it's on a production environment, is it
hmm
also like whatever I'm finding, is it sending back to some
is
other?
it dialing home?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and the way I look at it is that when the threat actors are using a tool, then that tells me that it must be doing something right. So there was I think Checkpoint had a pretty good article, and hopefully you can post the link on the article for that. I'll send it to you.
yeah.
But Checkpoint dug into it and also noticed that threat actors were talking about leveraging Hexstrike AI as a means to improve their processes and their workflow. So just like every organization, cyber criminals they're a business. They run a business,
Yeah, it's an
and,
operation.
and they and they want to improve their operations. They want to improve efficiency, and if Hexstrike can do it for them, they're going to evaluate that. And they've mentioned it. So it's an interesting take on leveraging open source, leveraging this AI tool to spin up multiple agents and have it go take care of a lot of the heavy lifting, and then really allowing the threat actors to focus on the things that are most important.
Yeah, yeah. No, fascinating. Yeah. So like, yeah, we'll have all those links to everything we talked about today in the comment section on the video. But Ray, thanks so much. I mean, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and just fascinating the work in the space that you're in, and your insights are invaluable. So thanks for spending some of your valuable time with us. And is there anything else you want to share, kind of like with the audience, like anything you're working on, speaking engagements or anything like that you might want to promote?
Oh, great. No, thanks for letting me do that. Let's see. Well, I've started a YouTube channel, new project. So youtube.com/Rey Bango. So I'm hopefully that'll start speeding up. One of the things I really want to get back to teaching folks. I love teaching. I used to do a lot of public speaking as well. So the fact that I'm able to have a medium that lets me kind of reach out to folks, that's great. I appreciate that. I hope just to be doing some more projects. I want to continue to work on the Empire C2 project with BC Security. Uh, yeah, that's the main things for right now.
Awesome.
No big travel other than helping my son in baseball and watching my daughter get older and helping
Yeah,
my wife grow her business. So yeah, just
good
doing
stuff.
family stuff.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So,
Yeah.
well, thanks again for taking time, and to everybody else out there, thanks for joining us. I hope this was informative, and encourage you all to check out Ray's YouTube channel. And just thanks for always giving back to the community too. That's always fun. So,
Oh, thank you.
well, we wish everybody a good rest of your Friday and a happy weekend, happy and safe weekend. And we will catch you on our next episode. Thank you very much.